Hi, I'm Kevin Harrington. I'm an original shark from the hit television show Shark Tank, and I'm here today with Jeff Williamson. And I'm going to say hello, Jeff.
Hey, Kevin.
Great having
Good
you here
to be
today.
here. Thank you.
I love your background because you're a speaker, you've written a book, you're an author, you're a coach, but you spent about 25 years in the world of television, which we're going to share some stories here today because I've been in that world also for many years. But you were an anchor as well as a reporter, and you had a lot of, and been on all sides of the camera. So that's really exciting stuff. So we're going to talk today a little bit about, let's just, for those that don't know you, let me just ask the question. Tell them who you are and kind of what you do.
Sure.
Right?
I'm Jeff Williamson. I am a speaker. I'm an author. I'm a coach. And like you said, I spent a long time in television news, 20 plus years in television news. And one of the things that I do is I try and help people learn how to communicate better.
Oh, very good.
In my history and my time as a television news reporter, I have seen how communication can make or break situations, can make or break a scenario, can make or break an organization, can make or break a government.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time studying communication and how it affects people, how it affects leaders, how it affects organizations. And my goal is to make people better through teaching them more about communication.
Awesome.
I have this saying that I kind of always repeat to myself, and it's this. I believe that everybody wins when the communication gets better.
Everybody wins when the communication gets better. Makes total sense, right? I mean, it's by the way, just talking and feel the passion that you have for your business and for your clients, and that's important. I think is how important is passion in communication.
Oh, it's everything. And I learned as a young man, I'm not that tall of a guy, Kevin, so I had to learn early on, how do I affect change the best? In the individuals that I get along with, that I work with every day, in my marriage, which is 35 years plus old. How do I affect change? How do I get things to happen that I want to happen?
Right.
I can't through my size subject myself to people, right? So I had to find a more clever way, which is through the area of communication, to be a good communicator, to be a better listener, to help the functionality of the organization in which I'm in. So those goals are goals that I had for myself, and I kind of approach that also on the stage when I talk to groups and organizations and companies.
That's fantastic. So when you start coaching folks, do you help individuals, or is it organizations, or a combination of both?
A combination of both. So I've talked to individuals, I've talked to organizations, I've talked to leaders, and I have a study that I've done over the years in which I've interviewed leaders on what are some of your challenges as it relates to communication? Right. What are some of the problems that you see within your organization?
There you go, right.
And leaders often say to me, well, communication is super important. You know how leaders are. Right. Communication is the most important thing that we do. And then I ask them the question, I says, well, how do you affect that? Right. Do you do a training on it if it's so important? And usually I hear crickets, Kevin. People just don't remember that they have to get better at communication. So that's my goal. I come in and I help organizations and leaders communicate better. It helps with the retention of employees. I have a lot of millennial kind of people that have worked for me, and they're not like it was when we were younger, where they would stay in orders for 20 years. They're ready to go in 2 years. Right. So how do I keep my good people? And one of the ways that I've learned to do that is just treating people a little bit better. Right. Be open, listen, and create an environment in which they would want to stay. That's important, because one of the things that I was going to ask is, how are you different than others that are in your business? There's other coaches that coach on communication and leadership and things, but what you just said is kind of is really the unique positioning of Jeff Williamson in terms of how you work with these organizations. Absolutely. Right? So I've researched this. I have a master's in speech and communications and a PhD in sociology. So I've learned and I've watched people and I've studied this, and I ask all the questions as to how do you affect change best through communication. Communication can't fix everything, Kevin, but it certainly can fix some of those things around the margins to help retain good people, to help create an environment for your organization in which people want to come and work there. Exactly. And if there's a problem in an organization, if there's no communication around it, it tends to get worse. Exactly right. Because everyone's thinking how bad this is. That's right. Unless somebody steps up and communicates how this is going to be handled. Jeff Williamson saying number 2 is very famous in communication. All communication voids are filled with negativity.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's an opening, if there's a vacuum, guess what? It's going to be filled with negativity.
Filled with negativity.
You better fill it with positivity, because if you don't, other people will dump trash in there.
Right.
Right.
Well, this is awesome.
Got to fix that.
I love this unique positioning that you've created for organizations, and this takes me to my next question then, because most of the people, if you're coaching, there's probably some kind of a problem, right? There's challenges.
That's right.
So when these organizations or individuals at high levels that you're dealing with have these challenges, how do you teach them to deal with them and to effectively overcome these challenges?
So one of the things I do is I tell them that they have to be actively thinking about communication all the time.
All the time.
We just don't do it.
Right.
We have our history, we have our background, and the way that we've always chosen to communicate. It could be about the history of how your mom or your dad spoke to you, and you then feel this is the way that I must and can communicate and should communicate with others. I say, pay attention to your communication.
Yes.
Think about it.
Yeah.
And what I do is I have a little communications journal. At night, I write down, how did I do in this conversation?
Right.
How did I do in this speech? How did I do in this interaction with this team?
Yes.
And I journal, I say, and how can I do better next time? So if you, what gets written down, Kevin, as you know, gets done.
Right.
So when I write these things down, I pay attention to them, then I think about how can I be better the next day? And most people do not focus on how can I get better in my communication skills.
Right.
And I think that helps leaders, especially executive leaders who are trying to push out a message to the organization, can get better.
Right. Are there any kind of technologies that you like to utilize or in terms of recommending companies, organizations to use to communicate better?
Not really. I mean, I think that what I do is I recommend a lot of books.
Okay.
I recommend a lot of reading material for them to go through to be able to assess and to recognize where they are. And poor communicators don't recognize often that they're poor communicators.
That's right. They're not going to admit it either.
No, they're not. But I think that once they start reading about it, they begin to actualize the information that they have. Right. Once they hear it from me, of course, they begin to actualize and say, you know what? I need to make some changes in the way that I communicate every day.
Yeah.
Especially with my teams, with my leaders and my senior supervisors and staff. If I can be a little bit better than that. And that's what I suggest. You just want little small improvements in the way you talk to people.
It's important.
It is important. I'm married to a girl from the South Bronx.
Okay.
Right? You know, I'm from the Midwest. Right? So there's a big difference in communication.
I'm Midwest here
exactly
too, right?
Yeah.
My wife's from Boston. I'm from Cincinnati.
Yes.
Ohio, right?
Okay. So you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So I had to figure out how I'm going to make this thing work.
Yeah.
And I made it work through communication. Same thing I take to the organizations. Same thing I take to my clients is how do you make it better through communication?
Yes. So your background is awesome, Jeff. And I mean, you've got a master's degree, a PhD. You've had so many successful things happening in your world, and folks that are out there right now are saying, "Hey, maybe I'd like to work with Jeff." And if so, do you have any words of encouragement for any of those out there that maybe they're stuck or they've hit a wall and they're thinking, maybe Jeff would be good for me? What kind of encouragement do you have for those folks?
So I would say to them, you have to remember that communication touches everything we do. And you are never not communicating. You are always communicating.
Yes.
You think you don't? Your facial expressions, it's hard to hide. And people watch you when they see you and they can spot a phony a mile away.
Yeah.
So what I say to people is begin to focus on your communication.
Right.
Pay attention to it.
Right.
Some of those simple things. And just if you ever need a speaker who can come in or to lead your organization or to give you help, to help actualize some of the communication tactics and techniques that I've written, talked about, lectured on for 20 plus years, they can always reach out to me and I'd be happy to give them a hand in that effort.
That's fantastic. So it sort of starts with a plan, right? And following a system that you work with them on. And it's a great opportunity because there's so many folks out there that get to a point, they haven't experienced these things before, but you're now going on dozens of years as an author and a coach and a speaker and consultant and all these different amazing things. So the book that you wrote has been a good thing for you.
It has
also to help people, because you tell people in communicating they also need to read and stay on top of the latest things going on in their industry.
That's right. And people stay focused on their primary industries. Like if you're in the baking industry, you pay attention to what's happening in the baking, or if you're in computers. But do you pay attention to you and how you're communicating your efforts? And almost every person I've spoken to has said to me, that's something I got to do a better job at.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Jeff Williamson, great having you here today.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
And there's many folks out there listening, whether you're an individual in need of some coaching and or a stronger communication system in your world, or if you have an organization that would like to talk to Jeff, there's information right here at the bottom of the screen that you can contact Jeff Williamson. And Jeff, again, it's been such a pleasure.
Awesome, Kevin.
And love your background.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for being here today.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.
All right.